But last but not least, I would like to welcome our guest speakers, the three guest speakers from IOO. Charles from, I think you are from the US, right? Max from the UK, and Ms. Anjali, I think you are from India, right? Zambia. I'm sorry. sorry. so วันนี้เราก็อาจจะมี presentation อาจจะมีสัก3ส่วนนะครับแต่ว่าที่เป็น PowerPoint ชุดใหญ่เลยเนี่ยก็จะเป็นของเริ่มต้นจะเป็นของชาวเขาก่อนนะครับซึ่งก็จะเล่าให้เราฟังถึงเรื่องของ Enterprise Development เป็นเรื่องของการเป็นเรื่องของเครื่องมือต่างๆนะครับเป็นเครื่องมือที่จะเข้าถึงกลุ่มที่เข้าถึงยากนะครับ Max เนี่ยเมื่อเช้าคุยกับเขานะฮะ Max นี่มาจากอังกฤษก็เขาจะเก่งเรื่องเกี่ยวกับกลุ่มที่เป็นกลุ่ม Hardcore นะฮะเป็นพวก disability นะครับพวกคนพิการต่างๆนะครับแล้วก็อาจารย์อัญชลีเข้าใจว่าจะมาเล่าให้เราฟังถึงเรื่องของประสบการณ์ในประเทศเพื่อนบ้านของเรานะครับก็จะเป็น3ส่วนด้วยกันนะครับผมก็อยากให้คุณธันธิดาผอ.ธันธิดาช่วยดำเนินรายการต่อครับ
ก็ในวงเราจะพูด2ภาษานะคะก็เมื่อกี้ก็ได้ so once again welcome to our international colleagues and I think all of you will be talk to us shortly. So let me introduce our speaker, but let me do it in Thai. So for the benefit of the audience, ก็จะขออนุญาตแนะนำวิทยากรคนสำคัญของเรานะคะก็คือคุณชาลีบอสเวลนะคะท่านเป็นที่ปรึกษาแล้วก็ผู้เชี่ยวชาญนะคะขององค์กรแรงงานระหว่างประเทศนะคะหรือว่า ILO นั่นเองนะคะชื่อย่อภาษาอังกฤษนะคะคือ ILO นะคะก็ต้องบอกว่าจริงๆประวัติของท่านอยู่ในแฟ้มของทุกท่านแล้วนะคะต้องบอกว่าน่าสนใจมากนะคะเพราะว่ามีประสบการณ์เยอะมากจริงๆนะคะก็คือโดยทำงานทางด้านธุรกิจแล้วก็การประกอบการเนี่ยมาเยอะนะคะทุกระดับตั้งแต่ระดับที่เรียกว่าบริษัทใหญ่ๆนะคะอย่างเช่นบริษัท Seagate หรือว่า IBM หรือ Accenture นะคะซึ่งได้มีความร่วมมือกับหน่วยงานที่เป็นระดับธุรกิจระดับใหญ่ของโลกด้วยนะคะแล้วก็ทำงานกับรัฐบาลนะคะแล้วก็รวมไปถึงแม้กระทั่งทำงานกับชุมชนด้วยนะคะเพื่อใช้โอกาสอย่างที่บอกค่ะว่าเชื่อมโยงเรื่องของการประกอบการกับธุรกิจเนี่ยไปถึงกลุ่มที่เรียกว่าชุมชนหรือว่ากลุ่มที่มีความได้โอกาสด้วยนะคะทำงานมามากกว่า20ประเทศในทั่วภูมิภาคนะคะเอเชียตะวันออกแล้วก็เอเชียตะวันออกเฉียงใต้ด้วยนะคะซึ่งวันนี้ท่านก็จะมาแชร์ประสบการณ์เหล่านี้ให้เราฟังนะคะว่ารูปแบบการทำงานที่จะเข้าถึงตามหัวข้อประชุมในวันนี้เลยนะคะว่าการที่เราจะเข้าถึงแล้วก็พัฒนากลุ่มที่เรียกว่าด้อยโอกาสที่สุดเนี่ยบทเรียนจากภูมิภาคเอเชียและแปซิฟิกนี้เป็นอย่างไรนะคะก็คิดว่าไม่เป็นการเสียเวลาก็จะขอเชิญวิทยากรได้นำเสนอในส่วนนี้นะคะก็ without further ado I think the floor is yours so please
Thank you very much. I would like to first of all start off with thanking EEF and its managing director, Kun Thantida. Although Kun Thantida, you don't have to point out how many years I've got. I know. The ILO shares the goals. When I read on the website and was approached by EEF about talking today, we share common goals. And I would hope that this is the beginning of a long and fruitful partnership where we can look at new ways of working together and helping the marginalized communities that we're both concerned about. As mentioned, yes, I have worked for a long time. I've been with the UN since 1991 and supporting these kind of communities. And over that time, what I've seen is a change in the kind of services we provide. If you look in the past, what we provided was training through institutions that had budgets, that had trainers, that have facilities, and are able to provide that kind of training support. When I got into this job 10 years ago in Thailand, supporting the communities of East and Southeast Asia, what I found was increasingly what our services are providing does not fit those. We're dealing with organizations that don't have dedicated trainers, that don't have facilities, and don't have large budgets to be able to support the communities they want to support. And yet, that was the approach we were taking. So we had to change. We had to shift. We had to look for new ways. How do you support communities that are hard to reach? How do you support those marginalized communities where there's not the institutions available to provide them support? And that's what we've been struggling with and trying to come up with new ways of doing. And from what I can see, we share that objective. How do you reach hard to reach? So, some questions that come up when you're thinking about that. First of all, how does it fit? If you look at these market vendors from Mumbai, how do you support them? There's an NGO that works with market vendors in Mumbai, in India. They have their children. If you see, the children are sitting on their laps. They're working with an NGO that has one room in which they'd like to train the ladies. But how do they do that? How do you have something that fits? And how do we, as the ILO, provide anything that is acceptable given our kind of cost? Because we're expensive. So anything we do needs to fit for that. How do we make it sustainable for our partners? When I think about programs, very often our partners finance us, development agencies, to provide training. What I don't think is important is the first 1,000 people that we pay for to do training. What I care is the 10,000 that come after. How do you make programs that are sustainable, that continue after our intervention? That's the important thing. Not while we're paying you to do the training, what happens when we leave? Do you continue using our approach? Do you continue supporting communities? That's what I care about. I don't care that it's a subsidized program that we pay you to do something. What I care about is, are you doing it after we leave? Is it sustained? And given who we are and those costs that I mentioned, does it scale? You know, it warms my heart to support 20 people or 200. But given, again, the ILO's role, what we care about is tens of thousands. How do we reach the tens of thousands we'd like to reach? And so, does it scale? Does it fit? Given, when you think about, out of the office here in Bangkok, we support 2 billion people. We support 1 billion workers across the region. It doesn't matter whether we support 200, 200,000, that starts to make sense. So scalability is really important. How do you do it cheaply? And how do you go to places where people can't? Like these refugee camps where we couldn't even send in trainers if we wanted to. Yet they're doing vocational training there. How do we provide them business skills training, my area? How do we do it in a way that they can just go and fit it right into the programs that they're doing? These are the challenges and the questions we've been struggling with over the last years. What we've come to is the key, as I said, these are the key points for ILO enterprise support. They might not be the key for you as a community organization. You have to worry about a community of 100 people or 2,000 people. Scale might not be your primary issue, but for us, it is. So if we support an organization that supports 2,000 people, we want to support 20 organizations like that. So is it scalable? Is it sustainable? Is it impactful? You know, when I think about training, everybody wants to know, okay, it's great you trained 20,000 people. What impact did it have on their livelihoods? Are they wealthier? Are their children better fed? Are their children going to education because the parents are earning enough that they don't have to have their children work? These are what we're looking for, the metrics that we want to achieve. And does it fit with the institutions? I was talking earlier before the presentation with our friends from EEF about the fact that what we want to have is programs that fit within institutions rather than remaking institutions. Institutions already have their goals. We want to have programs that they're thinking, we're doing vocational training, but we'd like to be able to do business training. Okay, here's some simple approaches that fit for you. So we want to find approaches that fit for the communities and institutions we're working with, that slot in to their existing programs rather than saying, stop doing this, do this. Say, okay, keep doing what you're doing. You're designed to do that, but here's some other support you can provide. What we found, traditional training, here's the obstacle. When we looked and said, what's the big challenge with the traditional approach? It requires high capacity institutional capability combined with money. And if you're going to remove that, when you talk about enterprise development, business skills development, it really boils down to one thing. What is that? What's the capacity requirement? What's the resource requirement? It boils down to expert capacity. Training up trainers is costly. Maintaining networks of high-capacity business skills trainers is costly. Is there any way we can get rid of that? Is there any way we can go around requiring having those business skills trainers, those high-capacity experts, the business professors or people like that, and yet you can still provide business skills training? What we headed towards is activity-based learning. Activity-based learning means not having somebody like me standing in front of the room. Making it participatory, activity-based. Having very simple tools like this on how to run a homestay, or this on how to run a handicraft business, or this on how to negotiate if you're a worker. Simple activity-based tools that cover simple ideas. Key ideas of how to run a homestay. Key ideas of when you negotiate, know what the other side wants and what you want. So those we run through in our training model in a step-by-step fashion. Very simple activities that get key principles across to the people participating. No expert. Community members facilitate these programs. No trainers, no technical expertise. And as we saw in that picture from Mumbai, they can be run on the floor of an NGO. They can be run in a community center. They can be run anywhere. This is a drawing. We asked one of the participants to draw in the beginning. We asked all the participants to draw what they thought training was. And at the start of the training, this one participant drew the picture on the left. My hair isn't that long, but basically you see the big trainer in the front and the smaller participants sitting listening. That's the idea. It's really a top-down, patriarchal kind of approach where the trainer is the person with all the knowledge and everybody else doesn't have knowledge. After our program, this is the drawing she made on the right. Much more, everybody shares. This is a recognition that in communities, people have knowledge. They know things. They can help each other. If you're talking to a group of handicraft makers, it's not that they're starting from scratch. They know things they can help each other with. So it's empowering in its approach. It's recognizing, and there's another issue. When you put a city-based, urban, university-educated trainer in front of a bunch of people, particularly in these hard-to-reach communities, you shut them down. They're afraid to participate. They don't want to say anything because that person knows more than them. Put them with a group of their peers talking about an issue they know. They're more than willing to speak up. I'd like to show a short video. First of all, a couple of short videos, if I can figure out how to get out of this. This is the methodology in camps up on the Myanmar border. Just so you can see what this looks like. That was in a refugee camp up in the Myanmar border. They didn't know, they were doing vocational training. They're teaching people how to repair engines, how to do plumbing, whatever they were doing, but they didn't know how to do business skills training. They came to us and said, we want to do business skills training. I said, here, we've got tools for you. All of these kids are being encouraged to go back to Myanmar, but are they going back to formal employment to go work for the auto body shop? No. They're going back to informal employment where they're probably going to have to be self-employed entrepreneurs. So this training was really crucial for them because even though they might have a vocational skill, they don't have the business skill. How do I start that business? What's it going to cost? Next video. This one is in Thai.
เป็นครอบครัวชาวนาเลยค่ะอ๋อตั้งแต่เกิดเลยค่ะไม่สามารถที่จะแยกได้ว่าเราทำนาตั้งแต่เมื่อไหร่ค่ะหลังจากที่ได้มาร่วมเป็นคณะทำงานร่วมกันนะคะได้เห็นความเปลี่ยนแปลงในด้านความคิดสิ่งที่เราได้ตอนนี้นะคะคือเราได้เครือข่ายเครื่องบรรจุหีบห่อผลิตภัณฑ์แล้วก็ในเรื่องความคิดที่จะพัฒนาคุณภาพของข้าวไรเบอรี่เนี่ยให้มีคุณภาพที่สามารถที่จะตอบโจทย์ในเรื่องสุขภาพได้นะคะช่วงอบรมเนี่ยมันเหมือนเราได้เป็นวิทยากรเองด้วยได้แลกเปลี่ยนฝึกเป็นวิทยากรเองฝึกเป็นผู้คิดแล้วก็ฝึกเป็นผู้เก็บข้อมูลเอง
ตั้งแต่เราอบรมมานะคะเราได้รับความรู้ค่ะความรู้มาเยอะเลยแล้วเราก็มาพัฒนาอย่างเกี่ยวกับที่เราทำร่มนะคะเราทำร่มแต่เดิมเนี่ยเราทำแบบทำธรรมดาปกติธรรมดาพอเราได้อบรมแล้วเราก็มาพัฒนาฝีมือให้ดีขึ้นกว่าเดิมแล้วก็มาทำโลโก้ทำอะไรหลายๆอย่างค่ะจะให้ดีกว่าเดิมค่ะแล้วเราก็ขายแล้วก็ได้ราคาดีกว่าเดิมค่ะพออบรมแล้วนะคะก็ไปเล่าให้ไปคุยกับพรรคพวกฟังกับแรงงานนอกระบบฟังเขาก็สนใจค่ะเขาก็บอกเขาก็อยากจะเข้ามามีการอบรมเกี่ยวกับสภาพแรงงานเนี่ยค่ะเพื่อไปพัฒนาตัวเองและครอบครัวต่อไปค่ะ
เมื่อก่อนหน้านี้ก็ทำกับข้าวขายที่ตลาดค่ะทีนี้พอดีมารู้จักเขาจะมีโครงการของยีราฟมาใช่ไหมคะเขาก็ประกาศว่าใครจะมาอบรมนวดอบรมอะไรก็เลยลองมาสมัครดูเขาก็รับประมาณ20 กว่าคนก็ไปอบรมเขาเป็นกลุ่มเป็นก้อนนี้นะคะจะได้รู้จักกันต่างคนก็ต่างรู้จักกันเนี่ยค่ะทำเป็นคู่ก็ดีมีความผูกพันมีความอะไรกันเนี่ยค่ะรู้จักเพื่อนฝูงกว้างขวางออกไปถ้าฝึกอบรมเสร็จแล้วก็ถ้าใครมีปัญหามีอะไรก็ปรึกษากันได้
Okay, there was a couple of quotes there that I thought were pretty interesting. The First Lady speaks about being trained to be thinkers. You want people to be able to think, and yet traditional training does not encourage that. It encourages passive learning. Thinking requires you to think, to talk, to use your head, to argue your point, and make decisions about that. So this kind of methodology we've got is very much based on thinking and forcing people to participate. Nobody can be quiet because it's fully engaging. You know, you're all sitting there talking about things. It fits very well for Thai communities also, I find, because they like to talk. People like to sit in a group and talk. So in that, it was a good fit. Another one, the lady making the umbrellas talked about we work in groups and help each other. One of the things we found out, we came up with this program basically to cut the cost, to make it cheaper. What we didn't think about was, number one, it's not just cheaper, it helps people think, but the other thing is it builds strong networks. People work together, they help each other, and after the training, they keep helping each other, which is great. It's a great output. And when we ask them in surveys what the most important thing of the training was, they often put the people I met, the network I built. So, a few examples. Number one, I'm not going to talk much about this one because we have Anjali here today, and she's running this program where we're helping develop networks of consultants that can help small businesses and link them to access to finance. We're now working on a program with garment factories. We're going to be assisting garment factories across Asia on basic components of manufacturing so that the workers in factories understand the basics of cutting material, laying material, things to improve productivity and quality, and allow these garment factories to train large numbers of workers. Because training 20 at a time doesn't fit when you've got a workforce like that. We're working very closely in Cambodia with the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Labor, and the Ministry of Tourism and the Ministry of Agriculture on different programs to support Cambodian youth. We run Cambodia Entrepreneurship Day every year. Next month, we'll have Cambodia Entrepreneurship Day. We'll have thousands of participants across the country. Every province in the country will run trainings like this one that just introduce the basics of entrepreneurship on September 21. I'd love to see a Thai Entrepreneurship Day, where in every province in Thailand, we talk about entrepreneurship and we run them through activities which introduce what is a company, how do you start it, what the basics are about having a product, what the costs are. So we're doing that across Cambodia. We're also working here in Thailand, we're working with the electronics sector on soft skills, things like problem solving, decision making, working in a team, managing, introduction to management for first level supervisors. We're doing that here in Thailand with Seagate, Samsung, Thai Summit, Delta Electronics. The biggest electronics firms are using our tools. Why are they taking our tools? Because they didn't know how to do soft skills training without large numbers of trainers that were too costly for them to roll out. Seagate alone has trained over 13,000 workers using our soft skills tools, 100% of their workforce in Thailand. One thing we haven't done, I put this up here because I have not figured it out yet, is online learning. We're not doing enough with online learning. I think the future, when you talk about youth, I don't have my smartphone, but it's my smartphone. You want to reach young people, figure out how to do that. So we're talking to a few universities back in the States that I know, and we're going to try to come up with some approaches where we can take some of this and put it on the phone. The problem is, what do we lose when we do that? The group interaction. The whole strength of our model has been getting people to help each other, getting them to build those communities. So we're going to try to figure that out with people that know better what they're doing. I don't have to run through. These are some of the initiatives. We've worked with Red Cross, CARE, Save the Children, Plan, the biggest NGOs here in the region. We're doing skills training programs. We showed the one about what we're doing with the refugee camps, but we're doing other ones. With each of these, we target a thing which I call sustainability from day one. The tools are, you look at them, you know how to use them. It's that simple. There's no, let's train up a trainer and 6 months from now we'll see if we can certify. No, here is the tool, you can use it. So when we introduce it, we often run, and maybe we can do this. We invite 30 or 40 people from different institutions to come, and we run them through a module. Here you go. Let's run through one module. You see it. If you like it, we'll talk to you more about how you can take it. And what? We have sample tools. Anybody wants to come and look through them, they can. Yeah, pass those around if you'd like. There are different examples. So we've got a whole family of tools for cooperatives. So we have a tool called Think Co-op. If you've got groups of farmers and you want to have them think about working in a collaborative fashion, Think Co-op. Start Co-op, that group of farmers decides we want to have a cooperative. Start Co-op leads them through the process. And then we have Manage Co-op, which is more complex. It's a series of modules that talks about how you run the finances of a cooperative, how you work together, how you support members, and all of that. I'm not going to go through the rest of these. We've used this approach with a wide variety of communities. The results, quickly, that number 100,000 is way below where we're at now. This is a number of years ago. Targeting the hard to reach, people that earn less than $1 a day, most of whom have never had access to training, never had access to formal training. The results, if you want to get into that, we can talk about these. We've done pre and post training surveys as well as hundreds of tracer studies. We just completed another 350 tracer studies. So we know better about what the results are, what the impact is. And just a snapshot of some of the organizations we worked with. You might recognize some. Let me come up with the conclusions. The good thing is, do not try to remake institutions. Give them tools that fit in and complement their existing program. Stop programs that did not achieve sustainability, that are not scalable, that are not having impact, or that don't fit. Just stop them. It's a waste of money to keep pushing after something that does not fit for us. Go broad. We introduce the program to dozens of enterprise organizations at a time, so we hold what's called a fair. And at the fair, it can be in a room like this, and we just put people in groups and say, here it is, here's how it works. If you want to use it, let us know. We'll come over and talk like we've done and figure out what else you can do. Look for policy initiatives where you can have real impact. Try to work at organizations like EEF that are able to impact beyond their own institution. And figure out how to use technology. I'm still working on. Gotta figure that one out. I'd like to, before we get to any questions or comments, have a couple of people I've invited to come along today. First of all, why don't I start with you, Anjali, to talk a little bit. I'll pass the microphone. Anjali Patel is working with LNCCI, the Lao National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and I'll let her talk about her program.
Okay, Sadika. So the Lao National Chamber of Commerce and Industry and the Ministry of Industry and Commerce approached the ILO and said that they have a challenge. They're basically trying to build the capacity of small businesses, and the main challenge they identify is access to finance. So you have on one hand, government injection of funds and commercial banks that have funds they would like to give as loans to small businesses. On the other side, you have small businesses all over Laos that are simply not able to even develop business plans to even begin that conversation. So as the ILO, we came in the middle to try and bridge that gap. And what we did is we used an existing tool that we have, which is in business and applies the activity-based learning, participatory, and results-driven. So we adapted it to the Lao context. We developed it with 8 commercial banks. We asked them, what do you need from the small businesses? Tell us so that we can adapt our tool. So we adapted the tool, and the Lao National Chamber of Commerce, using their network of BDS facilitators, have now started to roll out the training, the workshops. And what's interesting, again, like Charlie mentioned, is that one of the highlights for small businesses is the ability to interact with one another. In Laos, it's always assumed that, small businesses maybe do not need networks, but actually the most valuable thing that comes out is that they appreciated the networks. Secondly, they appreciated the direct link with the commercial banks, because mostly the small businesses are too intimidated to walk into a big commercial bank. So we brought the banks out to the businesses because these are good customers. They just don't have it written down, but they're good customers. So we basically help them with that. And what we've noticed initially, the Lao government asked us to only work in 3 provinces, the bigger ones, Vientiane, Luang Prabang, and Paxe. But what we noticed was there was a higher demand from all the other provinces where most development partners or commercial banks don't even go to operate. So you basically have businesses that are running there and are demanding for this, and they're paying for these services. They're putting their own resources in to complete these because they see the value of it. So for us, the key success points has been 1, working directly with the Chamber of Commerce, 2, working with the existing BDS providers. They're not experts, but they're able to facilitate a conversation, able to allow for groupings of SMEs, and working at the provincial level. And then now the next stage is really to continue working with the commercial banks so that they can create tools and financial models that are more easily accessible for SMEs. SMEs in Laos don't need $100,000. They need 20,000 or 10,000. That's going to help them go to the next level. So this is funding through the Ministry of Industry and Commerce, who engaged the ILO for us to work there. So it's just the beginning, and we've just added to the existing structures there. So we're hopeful that in a year, it'll be a completely different picture in Laos.
And next, I'd like to introduce Max Simpson. She's with an organization called Steps with Tira.
Good morning, everyone. As Charles mentioned, I'm not from the ILO, but we are working with the ILO. We are a social enterprise that is working specifically with teenagers and adults with learning differences. So we focus on the community of people with cognitive challenges, including autism, Down syndrome, ADHD, and often we get the label LD, so just learning difficulties. We connect with the ILO because we believe in similar values, that activity-based learning is the right approach to achieve scalability, sustainability, and impactfulness. There are only a few experts in this field in Thailand, so it wouldn't be a sustainable practice to try and get all of those people running trainer-trainer programs, when the reality is the majority of people with disabilities are in the provinces, in areas where there are not specialists, and the most likely pathway for them is that they will end up being self-employed or working for their family business. So we need to find a way to empower those people to have the skills and the programs that they need to be able to do that. We're looking at how do we help people to live a dignified life and to be included. We know that there's about 500,000 people with disabilities in Thailand who are of working age and who want to work and who are able to work but are not. There's various reasons for that, but we won't go into that today. It's challenging and it's hard because about 70% of people with learning disabilities don't finish primary education. They don't continue into secondary education. So naturally, their opportunity to access employment is less. The tools that we are using from the ILO have been fantastic because one, just as Charles talked about, we don't have to change what we're doing. We can implement them into our existing program, and our baristas can do it. Our chefs can use it. Our office manager can use it, our HR assistants can use it. I don't need a team of specialists to be able to make this work. So part of our project is that we have on-site social businesses. So we have a coffee shop, we have an art program, we have a ICT program, and we have an office and administration program. So our trainees are working on the job, doing activity-based learning to get the skills that they need to transition into employment. And at the end of the program, they will go into one of our partner companies who then help them remain employed for the foreseeable future with our training. The tools that we took from the ILO were the ready for business models.
Is there some?
Yeah, there should be. Okay, there we go.
There is some coverage.
Yeah. So we worked with a group of adults who are aged 18 to 25, a range of different learning challenges, and a mix of Thai, half Thai, and one expat trainee. The program is delivered bilingually, and it's delivered by, as I mentioned, people who are already working in these businesses. They are not specialists. These are some examples of the tools. So you can see that it's so different to other programs that you get asked to use, or especially in my field from other organizations, it's very accessible. We didn't need huge amounts of adaptation to make it fit with our community. We literally just adjusted the documents to be bilingual and to have a few more visual supports in place so they're more accessible. This activity was around creating a vision board for your future. What would you like to achieve? What is your goal? What business would you like to have? And to see our trainees get the opportunity to express that was fantastic because they'd never been asked before. They actually have fantastic ideas and ways to achieve this. And as you can see here, they are working in our coffee shop. They are on the job. They are putting those skills into practice and interacting with the people that are already working in that field. It's been a really, really great partnership working with Charles to implement this, and we look forward to doing much more of it moving forwards. This real life scenario, that's what we need. We know that that's applicable across all of vocational education, not just for the people with disabilities. The modules are broken down. There's suggestion of warm-up activities. There's a reflection at the end of each module that helps us to know that learning has concreted, that it's in place, that those people are able to generalize those skills elsewhere. And as I mentioned before, very little adaptation was needed to put that into place. Yeah, thank you very much.
So yes, it's been a nice partnership, and I would throw in a bit of an ad for Steps with Tira. The coffee shop is one of the nicest here in Bangkok. You've moved, haven't you? It's no longer off. Still there. Okay, that's Soy what Ekamai? Ekamai 10. It was Ekamai 10. So if anybody wants to go for a good coffee, Ekamai 10. Thank you. I think we're now going to go. There was one thing that I wanted to point out, if I can find my way back to my presentation. Unfortunately, the materials that I brought are my only copies. We try not to print up lots of materials. So if anybody wants copies of these, I need those back. But I'm happy. These are all open source. We do our materials not under copyright. They're under Creative Commons. That means you can take them, you can adopt them. Many of them are in Thai, not all of them, but we can work on that. And if you send me an email, I'll point you in the right direction, or I'll also work with EEF to make sure that they have access to all of these materials and know where they can be found. So, thank you. We move now to questions and comments. Okay.